Have you ever felt a pull in your heart, a longing so strong it almost aches, but you couldn't name it, it doesn't show up in your bloodwork, you can't photograph it, nor can you explain it fully, even to those closest to you. And yet it's as real as hunger. Maybe it comes when you see the ocean, hear a certain song, watch the sun melt into the horizon, or even when you're alone in the quiet of the night. That feeling you can't describe. Yes, that one, it's not random, it's not weakness, it's not confusion, it's a clue. It is the soul remembering something it once knew but can't quite recall. It is the mind wrestling with the limits of language. It is the heart knocking gently on the door of meaning. Most of us spend our lives trying to name that feeling, and many go further, trying to fill it. Some try money, others pour themselves into work, applause, pleasure, or love. These things are good, yes, but they aren't the thing. At best, they are signs, faint echoes, of something more. Have you ever wondered why the most perfect moment never lasts? Why even the highest achievement fades into a kind of silence? Why joy is often shadowed by a strange melancholy? It's because the thing you're truly after is not in the thing itself, but in what it points to. We live in a world that tells us every desire can be satisfied, every longing fulfilled, if we just buy more, do more, become more. But that unnamed feeling doesn't work that way. It does not want more. It wants truth. It wants home, and the truth is, some feelings are not meant to be solved. They're meant to awaken us. So here is what I want to tell you. Do not run from that feeling. Do not drown it in noise, distract it with entertainment, or shame it as weakness. That ache, that longing, it's a compass. It may not point to a destination you can Google, but it's real. It's pointing you toward depth, toward honesty, toward your most authentic self. Toward a kind of life that isn't rushed or shallow, but rich with meaning, even in the waiting. The modern world is afraid of things it cannot explain, but the wise are not. The wise lean in. The wise follow that thread, that subtle whisper of the soul. So next time that feeling visits you, pause, listen, don't fight it, let it lead you, because maybe, just maybe, that feeling you can't describe is not a problem to fix, it's a calling to follow. There are moments when we are struck by something inside us, like a silent wave washing over the heart, totally unfamiliar and yet strangely known. It might arrive when you're walking alone under the stars, or when a childhood memory rises without warning. It can visit in the middle of a celebration, or when you hear a line in a song that lingers far longer than expected, and when it hits there are no words, just a stillness, a sensation that something is missing. But also something more is near. That feeling, it doesn't fit into categories like happiness, sadness, fear, or love. It slips through those labels like water through your hands. You know it's real, you feel it deeply, but when you try to explain it, the language betrays you. You might say, I miss something, but I don't know what, or I feel like I belong somewhere else, but I've never been there. This is what we call the nameless longing, a yearning that has no fixed object, no specific origin, and yet seems to pulse from the deepest part of us. What makes it so powerful is not its intensity, but its mystery. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand. It simply exists quietly, persistently, like the faint scent of something beautiful just beyond our reach. Many people try to ignore this longing. It's inconvenient. It doesn't make sense in a world obsessed with speed, productivity, and clarity. So they drown it in noise or try to mute it with distractions, scrolling endlessly, binge watching, chasing achievements. But it doesn't go away. In fact, it often grows louder in the quiet spaces between distractions, in the silence before sleep, in the stillness of being alone. Others confuse the longing with ordinary desires. They say, I just need a better job, a bigger house, a perfect partner, then this feeling will stop. But they find, to their surprise, that even when they get what they wanted, the ache returns, sometimes even stronger. The longing was never about material gain. It was never asking for things. It was asking for truth, That's why the feeling can hit anyone, rich or poor, young or old, successful or struggling, because it has nothing to do with what you have and everything to do with what you are. It's not a sign of emptiness, as many assume. It's a sign of depth. It's not a flaw in your emotional system. It's a feature of your design. You were made to want more than what the world can give, not more in quantity, but more in meaning. That longing inside you is not simply a reaction to pain or loneliness. It is often strongest when things are going well, when you're surrounded by beauty or love or peace, and still it whispers, there's something more. That whisper is important. Because the moment we stop pretending we understand everything, the moment we accept that there's a part of us we can't explain, that's the beginning of wisdom. The nameless longing is not a problem to solve. It's a message to receive. It reminds us that we are not just creatures of biology. We are not only muscle, bone, and brain. We are soul. We are mystery wrapped in flesh. And sometimes the soul speaks a language the mind doesn't fully grasp. To live a meaningful life is not to silence that longing, but to honor it, to let it guide you, to stop searching for shallow answers and start asking deeper questions. What do I truly seek? Why do moments of beauty make me feel like I've lost something? Why does joy sometimes come with a tear? Because these are not coincidences. They are signals. That nameless longing is not trying to confuse you. It's trying to awaken you. And when you begin to listen, you'll realize something profound. That longing isn't random. It isn't just emotion. It's a map, a quiet invitation to a greater reality. One that you've glimpsed in moments of wonder, in flashes of love, in whispers of peace. Which brings us to the next step in our journey, because if that longing is real, if it keeps returning, if it has depth and intelligence, then we must ask, what is it pointing to? And perhaps the answer lies in the echoes of another world. If the longing we feel cannot be named, and if it is not satisfied by anything in this world, then we must ask a difficult but honest question. What is it we are really yearning for? It would be easy to say we want happiness, or peace, or love, but those words, too, often fall short. Because even when we have them, the longing still returns. So we begin to wonder if maybe, just maybe, our deepest desires are not desires for more things, but for something else entirely. Consider this. Why does beauty affect us the way it does? A single piece of music, just a few notes arranged in the right way, can reduce us to tears. A painting, a sunset, or the scent of rain on soil can awaken something in us that no explanation can fully describe. We don't just like these things, they touch us. They seem to reach down into something ancient and sacred within. And yet, the feeling doesn't last. The music ends, the sunset fades, the perfect moment slips away. And as it goes, it leaves behind that same ache we spoke of before, that unnameable yearning. It's as though these moments are not the destination. They are the trailheads. That's the mystery, that beauty can stir us so deeply, and yet never fully satisfy. It's almost cruel, until you begin to see it differently, until you realize that maybe these things were never meant to satisfy, but to signal. Maybe they are not the treasure itself, but the signs that the treasure is real. A melody that makes your heart swell, that's not just music, it's a whisper. A mountain range that takes your breath away, that's not just nature, it's a window. The laughter of someone you love, the stillness of a quiet morning, the weight of a timeless book in your hands. These are not just passing experiences. They are echoes, echoes of something greater, something outside the walls of this world, yet somehow woven into the very fabric of it. And you felt it, we all have, a moment where time seemed to pause and something beyond you briefly touched your soul. You couldn't explain it, but it was real. It's why you remember certain moments years after they passed, not because they were dramatic, but because they felt like home. Some might say this is just nostalgia, or the imagination playing tricks. But if that were true, why is the experience so universal? Why does every culture, every generation, record stories, songs, and art that speak of a place we've never seen but somehow remember? We're haunted, not by nightmares, but by glimpses of paradise, not by what we've lost, but by something we've never quite had, yet somehow deeply miss. That is the echo, and here's what makes the echo powerful. It doesn't speak with words. It speaks through longing, through wonder, through the ache that beauty leaves behind. That ache is not disappointment, it's direction. So when you feel that stirring, don't silence it, don't say it's nothing. Let it do its work. Let it open the window inside you that has been shut for too long, because through that window you may begin to see that your soul was made not just to observe beauty, but to belong to it, to be in relationship with something eternal, good, and utterly real. That doesn't mean we reject the world we live in. It means we stop expecting it to do what it was never designed to do. The world is not the feast. It is the aroma that tells us the feast exists. We were not made to be fully at home here, and that's not a flaw, it's a clue. The ache is not punishment, it's preparation. These echoes remind us that we're not only physical beings learning to live, we are eternal beings learning to remember. And when you begin to accept that the echoes are real, the next question becomes even more vital. If the echo is this powerful, what must the original be like? Which leads us to what many discover too late, that we've been searching in all the wrong places. Not because we didn't want truth, but because we mistook the echoes for the source. And that takes us directly to our next reflection, the myth of total satisfaction. If the echoes we feel in beauty and joy are real, and if they point beyond themselves to something greater, then it makes sense why so many spend their lives chasing those echoes, hoping one day they might catch the original. But here's where we fall into a trap, the myth of total satisfaction. It's the idea that one day, if we try hard enough, plan well enough, and collect the right experiences, we'll finally reach a moment where the ache will stop. That everything inside us will go quiet, that we'll feel complete, whole, without tension, without longing. It begins subtly. A young student believes once they graduate, life will begin. The graduate believes once they find their purpose, they'll be fulfilled. Then it becomes about marriage, then career, then money, then security, always the next thing, always just around the corner. We keep saying, when I get there, I'll feel satisfied, but there keeps moving. And when the moment finally arrives, the achievement, the relationship, the success, it is real and often beautiful, but something strange happens. The silence we expected never comes. We feel a high, yes, but not the lasting peace we imagined. And sometimes that moment is followed not by celebration, but by emptiness. We wonder, why don't I feel what I thought I would feel? That's the myth unraveling. The world around us is built on this illusion. Marketing, culture, even social media, all tell us that total satisfaction is not only possible, but expected. That your job, your partner, your lifestyle should finally make you feel whole. And if it doesn't, something must be wrong, with you or them or both. But what if nothing is wrong? What if this pattern is not a failure of the system, but a sign we're expecting something the system was never designed to deliver? The problem isn't desire, it's direction. We are taught to treat human longing like hunger. You identify it, then feed it. You want love, so find a partner. You want meaning, so build a career. You want happiness, so buy the thing. But this kind of desire is different. It's not a need for a product. It's a need for something deeper. Connection, truth, permanence. You can't plug that hole with a promotion. You can't bury that ache under applause. And yet we keep trying. We run faster, achieve more, take more trips, chase more beauty, but the silence remains, not because we're broken, but because we were never supposed to arrive in that way. The satisfaction we crave is too big to fit into moments. Think about how often people say, I thought this would make me happy, but it didn't. They don't say that because they were greedy, they say it because they were honest. They expected the echo to behave like the source. But echoes, no matter how strong, always fade. We've been taught that if we don't feel complete, we just need to find the missing piece. But what if the real task isn't completion, but direction? What if we're not supposed to find all the answers here, but simply begin asking the right questions? Questions like, what if this longing isn't meant to be cured, but cultivated? What if these temporary joys are not wrong, but road signs? What if the myth of total satisfaction isn't a myth because satisfaction is impossible, but because we've been searching in the wrong places all along? The key is to stop demanding total fulfillment from temporary things, stop expecting permanent peace from moments designed to pass. That doesn't mean we should avoid joy, quite the opposite, we should run toward it. But with open eyes, enjoy success, but don't ask it to heal your soul. Celebrate love, but don't treat your partner like a god. Chase dreams, but know they are not the final chapter. When we release the myth of total satisfaction, we actually become more free to enjoy the present moment. Because now, we don't demand it to fix us, we let it point us, and that's where something shifts. We stop chasing, we start noticing, we begin to see the pattern, the repeating message. Every high moment, every ache, every joy is saying the same thing: there's more. But if we've misunderstood satisfaction, then where exactly have we gone wrong in our search? What keeps pulling us off course? And this brings us to the next keynote: misplaced seeking. If we've accepted that the world cannot offer total satisfaction, the next honest step is to examine why we keep expecting it to. Why do we pour ourselves into things that, deep down, we know can't complete us? It begins with good intentions. We want to live a meaningful life. We want purpose, connection, identity. We want to feel whole, and so we begin the search. The problem isn't the search itself. It's where we begin it. Many of us are taught, whether directly or by example, that happiness is found in achievement. So we make success our goal. We seek validation through performance, grades, promotions, applause. We become addicted to being seen as capable, competent, excellent. And for a time it works. There's a thrill to being praised, a rush to being recognized, but the high doesn't last, because no matter how much we accomplish, we remain human. We still carry uncertainty, doubt, and longing. Success may decorate the surface, but it rarely touches the root. So we pivot. Maybe it's not success. We say, maybe it's love. We start seeking someone who will make us feel complete. Someone who will understand us so deeply that the ache inside finally quiets. And love is real. It's powerful. But even the most beautiful relationship cannot bear the weight of filling every emptiness inside us. When we expect one person to fix what's broken in our soul, we set them up to fail. And when they do, we call it disappointment, when it was actually misplaced seeking. Others turn inward. If the world won't complete me, I'll complete myself. Self-improvement becomes the answer. Fitness, mindfulness, confidence, these are valuable practices, but if we treat them as paths to ultimate fulfillment, they collapse under the pressure. We weren't made to perfect ourselves into peace, and for many, when these routes don't satisfy, they seek escape. Pleasure becomes the new pursuit. Food, entertainment, thrill, addiction. The goal shifts from meaning to numbness. If we can't find peace, we'll at least find distraction, but distraction always runs out. The silence returns, the ache whispers again. We begin to notice a pattern. We're searching with intensity, but in all the wrong places. We treat temporary things as if they're eternal. We worship symbols as if they are sources. We drink from wells that were never meant to quench the thirst of the soul. And perhaps the most dangerous thing is that many of these pursuits almost work. They give us just enough satisfaction to believe the next level will finally fix it. One more promotion, one more trip, one more like, one more year, but almost is the trap, because almost keeps us chasing. It keeps us from asking the deeper question. What if the emptiness isn't meant to be filled by this world at all? It's not that the things we chase are evil. Most of them are good, but we've misused them. We've asked them to become what they were never created to be. A career can be a calling. It cannot be your identity. A partner can be a companion. They cannot be your salvation. A passion can give joy. It cannot give peace. What we're looking for is not a better strategy, but a better foundation, a truer orientation. One where we stop treating echoes as endpoints, one where we stop chasing the reflection and begin to look for the light itself. It's only when we realize that we've been looking in the wrong direction that we can turn around. But this turning doesn't happen through a dramatic transformation. It happens slowly, quietly, in honesty, in stillness, in admitting to ourselves, I've been looking for something eternal in things that are temporary. That's where clarity begins. The world isn't wrong for offering us beauty, achievement, love, or pleasure. But we are wrong when we demand from those things what only depth, truth, and transcendence can give. Misplaced seeking exhausts us, because it demands that we build meaning from materials too fragile to hold it. And that brings us to the next step. If all of this is true, if the seeking is sincere, but the direction is wrong, then perhaps the answer lies not in escaping the mystery, but in embracing it, which leads us to our next reflection, meaning hidden in mystery. When we've spent years chasing satisfaction in all the wrong places, and when we finally pause long enough to see that the world's promises fall short, a strange space opens within us. It's not always peaceful. It's unsettling, but it's honest, and in that space we begin to ask a different kind of question, not how do I fix this, but what does this longing mean? That's where something shifts, because now, instead of rushing to solve the ache, we start to sit with it. We begin to wonder if the ache isn't a flaw in the system, but a feature of it, a signal, a guide. We start to see that the human experience is full of mystery, not the kind that confuses, but the kind that reveals something deeper than logic can reach. Not everything meaningful in life can be measured. You can't weigh joy. You can't chart the depth of love. You can't quantify the feeling you get when you see the eyes of someone who truly sees you. But these things are real, more real, sometimes, than anything you can touch. We live in an age obsessed with answers, metrics, explanations. We want clarity, efficiency, resolution, and yet the deepest parts of being human resist that framework. They exist beyond formulas. So when we encounter that lingering ache, that nameless longing we spoke of, it doesn't give us a solution, it gives us an invitation to mystery. This is where many turn away. We're afraid of what we can't control. If something can't be defined, we call it irrational. If it can't be proven, we call it untrustworthy. But there is another way to see it, not as uncertainty, but as reverence. Some truths are not smaller than logic. They are larger, too vast to be crammed into equations or explained away. Like beauty, like sacrifice, like grace, we begin to learn that mystery is not the absence of meaning. It's the presence of it, hidden just deep enough that it must be approached with humility. And it's in this humility that growth begins. We let go of our need to dominate the experience. We stop trying to control every outcome. We realize that not all things must be explained to be real. Some things are meant to be lived before they are understood. We see this in grief, in love, in forgiveness, in awe. The moments that change us most are the ones we rarely saw coming and can never fully explain. And maybe that's the point, because mystery softens us. It cracks the shell of certainty we've built around ourselves. It reminds us that life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be engaged with, fully, honestly, and with open hands. The problem with our misplaced seeking wasn't just that we looked in the wrong places, it's that we demanded answers where we were meant to practice wonder. Meaning doesn't always arrive with explanation. Sometimes it arrives as a question that refuses to go away. Why do I feel homesick for a place I've never seen? Why do I sense something greater when I'm alone in nature? Why do I feel the most alive when I stop trying to impress and simply exist? These are not distractions, these are doorways, moments where the soul is speaking more clearly than the mind, and to walk through those doorways, we don't need to abandon reason, we need to expand it. We need to allow space for mystery, not as confusion, but as dimension. Think of it this way: a candle doesn't stop being a candle just because you can't explain fire, and your soul doesn't stop speaking just because you can't put its language into words. In fact, the more you learn to live with mystery, the more alert you become to meaning. You start seeing it in the smallest things, in the laugh of a child, in the patience of an old man, in music that brings tears, in silence that feels full instead of empty. Mystery doesn't erase the ache, it deepens it. But now the ache no longer feels like a wound. It feels like a window, a glimpse into something more. So we stop fighting the unknown. We start listening to it, and when we do, something begins to take root, a kind of stillness, a quiet knowing. We stop asking the ache to go away, and instead begin asking where it's leading us. And that leads us naturally to our final reflection. If we've seen the longing, followed the echoes, exposed the myth, corrected our search, and embraced the mystery, what now? Now we ask how we are to live. Which takes us to the final keynote, the call to live deeply. When we stop demanding certainty and begin welcoming mystery, life begins to shift, not outwardly at first, but inwardly. The ache is still there. The longing doesn't disappear, but it takes on a new shape. It becomes less like a wound and more like a compass. We no longer see it as a problem to eliminate, but a signal to follow. And so the question becomes, now that I know the ache won't be answered in shallow places, how do I live? This is the turning point. Most people continue as they always have, distracted, reactive, chasing after echoes. But for those who have begun to see through the illusion, the call is different. It is quieter, deeper, more demanding, not in the sense of pressure, but in the sense of depth, because once your soul has been awakened, you cannot go back to sleep. You begin to feel the gap between the life you're living and the life that wants to be lived through you. The call to live deeply isn't about doing more. It's about being more present in what you do. It's not about adding more weight to your schedule. It's about removing the weight from your soul. It starts in small ways. You notice that rushing through life doesn't work anymore, that being busy feels more like running from something than running towards something. You begin to seek stillness, not just as rest, but as resistance against the superficial. You start asking better questions. Instead of, "What will people think of me?" you ask, "What do I think of the life I'm building?" Instead of, "How can I get more?" you ask, "What do I already have that I've stopped seeing?" Instead of, "What's next?" you ask, "What's true right now?" You become more intentional with your time, more honest in your relationships. You learn to say no to things that once defined you, not out of rebellion, but out of reverence for the life you know you are meant to live. The deeper life is not louder, it's more focused. It's not about escaping reality, it's about stepping into it, fully awake. And this kind of living doesn't require perfection. It requires presence, to be where your feet are. To speak when your heart is full, to rest when your body is weary, to create not for applause, but for truth, to care more about the substance of your life than the appearance of it. This is not easy. The world will not applaud this path. It will pull at you. It will tempt you with noise, comparison, and the myth of more. But once you've tasted depth, distraction feels hollow. Once you've heard the quiet truth inside you, the world's shouting loses its grip. Living deeply means you begin to honor the ache rather than hide it. You see others differently, not as obstacles or stepping stones, but as fellow travelers, each carrying their own unnamed longing. You grow more compassionate, less impressed by appearance, more drawn to sincerity. You realize that the most alive people aren't the ones who have it all together, but the ones who are honest about their brokenness and brave enough to still move forward. You understand now that meaning is not given, it is built, moment by moment, in how you choose to show up to your own life. You begin to build your days around what truly matters, not urgency, but essence. You ask, does this align with what I value? Is this making me more real, or more divided inside? Am I making room for the things that feed my soul, or just the things that feed my image? You stop waiting for the perfect moment to change. You realize that the shift begins here with what you do today, with how you speak, how you listen, how you breathe, how you choose. This is what it means to live deeply, not to escape the ache, but to walk with it. Not to demand satisfaction from the world, but to carry that longing as a sacred reminder of who you are and what you're made for. And the beauty is, this depth, this awareness, this presence. It doesn't make life easier, but it makes it real, and real life, though painful and imperfect, is the only place where meaning can be found.